Hi guys, today I am back with a very interesting video on to help you guys with last minute university examinations. So here is a discussion on university papers. So let's get quickly started with the papers and the questions. So briefly what you have for university exams are the 10-mark essay questions, the long essays, and then comes your short essays for 5 marks, and then the short notes for another 2 marks. So the long essays are of course the major chunk of your writing sheets or your answer scripts, in which you are tend to gain more marks, and but on the same time it can be very time consuming, which can lead you to a shortened time to attend to other questions. So a time planning is required for a successful attempt of your answer for your examinations. So let's look on to few questions. For example, I can give you tips on how to approach it in a much efficient manner. So these are the problems what I used to face as a student, which I would like to pass on to you, and that can be very helpful you in preparing you up for your upcoming university examinations. So for example, if you get a question on enumerate Andrew's 6 keys to normal occlusion, describe in detail the angle system of classification of malocclusion, add a note on its background drawbacks. Sorry. So the question itself has got 3 parts, in which first is strictly just to enumerate Andrew's 6 keys to normal occlusion. So these kinds of questions are very helpful because the mark distribution is based on your sub question. So the long essay appears as to be a single question. In this case, it has got 3 parts. So part A is where just it requires a brief enumeration of Andrew's 6 normal keys, 6 keys of normal occlusion by Andrew. So if even if you enumerate it, that is good enough, or a little explanation with regard to each of those points can also fetch you good marks. So for basic skeleton, what is required is just to enumerate all the 6 in order, and just briefly 1 or 2 points on each of them. Now the next part of the question B would be describe in detail angle system of classification of malocclusion. So you know what is angles malocclusion? What are the main three class we have classified the occlusions into, and then a little bit touching upon each one and their subdivision. Especially class 2 has got 2 subdivisions as class 2 div 1 and class 2 div 2, and the combination of various like you can have the normal occlusion on one side and class 1. So how to put it under angles classification. So a brief note on those points if you touch down would fetch you enough and more marks and save you more time. So please don't go for the elaborate system in which you describe the various modifications of various authors that has been recently added, like D-Base. So that is not required as such. Only if time permits and you are very enthusiastic to write them out, please do. Otherwise, please don't attempt it. So now the third part of the main question is add a note on its drawbacks. So we have to enumerate the drawbacks and list them. So approximately what they're looking forward would be 10 solid points with proper explanation to each of it. So if not 10, ideally stick to somewhere more than 5, 6 to 7 or 7 to 8, and describe in detail why if there is a situation in which the molars are missing, because Andrew's key of occlusion and Angle's class of malocclusion always concentrate on the permanent first molar teeth. In some situations, if it is missing or if it's not suitable or if it is prosthodontically replaced, there are situations when these tooth cannot be considered. So that comes on with the detailed elaboration on drawbacks. So I think you have got an idea how to attempt such a question. So equal distribution of marks. So if it's 10 marks, the first part of the question can carry about 4 marks, and then coming on to the next part, it can be about 3 or 3 to 4. Again, it can be 3.5, or the next and the last portion can carry around 3.5 again. So 3.5 to 3.5 makes it 7, and the first part can have 3 marks. So generally, it's not just one question or one part of the question is to be attempted properly and the remaining has to be skipped is not the way. You attempt each one of the parts in equal proportions so that your time and effort is distributed equally. So please don't overwrite your answer scripts so that you will fetch more marks. It's not like that. Please redistribute your priorities or whatever you write equally into the all three sub questions too. Now, for example, let's see another question in which it clearly is enumerate the various theories of growth. Explain the mode of action of Frankel appliance with reference to functional matrix hypothesis. So here clearly again it is a combination of three questions, but the part 2 is hit in part 3. So it is not very clear from the question itself, but it is indirectly asking you to explain the functional matrix hypothesis in detail along with the functioning of a myofunctional appliance, the Frankel appliance. So that is how first you have to enumerate whatever theories of growth like cartilages, sutural theory from the basics. So that there can be up to 10 growth theories in which each can be described in one or two points, an extensive description on the functional matrix hypothesis. What are the components, as cranial, the skeletal components, the functional components of it, and then coming on a brief explanation of what is a Frankel appliance, what are the types of Frankel appliance, where and how it is used, the indications, the advantages, the disadvantages, why is it called a myofunctional appliance. So this is a pretty tricky question, but you must know what to write into the question so that it fetch you the maximum mark. So for a university paper, when you attempt it, this is what the invigilator looks for. So he looks for the various theories of growth and in detail the functional matrix hypothesis connected with the myofunctional appliances, a little briefly on the Frankel appliance and its mode of actions, advantages, disadvantages. So that's how you conclude a long essay. So please make sure that you attempt to every part of the question which comes for the long essay. It's not usually a single, it is just not like enumerate various theories of growth and you sit and explain each theories in great detail. It's not required. Please do mention which is being asked again, which is the functional matrix theory is of importance to the invigilator. So please highlight that and write more on that. That doesn't mean that you can skip the other part. Please enumerate with valid 1 or 2, 3 points to substantiate your answer scripts. Now moving on to which we have the next set which is called as long essays, in which again it can be a combination. We have other examples like define anchorages, classify different types of anchorage and describe various types with suitable examples. So here the question is very clear. First, the definition of anchorage by one or two authors can be written, and then it comes to different types of anchorages like a simple, compound, or a combination, the reciprocal types, which we have discussed earlier, and then the different types with suitable examples, how a simple appliance, how reciprocal anchorage can be used, for what appliances, for headgear, how it is being used. So such as this question, for instance, is very clear for you. Now, and there are three subparts for it. So please divide your time and your answers equally addressing all the three questions. Now the next question of interest is classify myofunctional appliances with examples, discuss the mode of action, indication, construction and management of functional regulator 2. So first is clear-cut definition what you have to know about removable appliance, functional appliance has been continuously asked or repeated mode of questioning and the proper examples associated with it. And then you can have how the mode of action of each one is along with its indications and the construction mode of how it is being placed and the management. So each of it will carry around 2.5. So if you discuss on classify myofunctional appliance with examples would carry 4 marks with a distribution on 2.5 marks with mode of action, indication, construction, and management of functional regulator. So the marks have been uniformly distributed for the two parts of this question for instance. So the next set of questions is a short essays. The first question what is for our discussion is what are the ideal requirements of orthodontic study models? Explain Ashley Ho's analysis. So here the ideal requirements of orthodontic study models can carry approximately 2.5 marks, or it can be just simply 2 marks, and the 3 marks can be distributed for Ashley Ho's analysis, which include defining the analysis, the measurements required with it, what is the premolar premolar basal arch length, the basal arch width, how is the discrepancies between the two determinal for extraction. So what are the percentages which is required or termed for borderline, where extraction is required strictly and where extraction is not indicated. So indications has to be mentioned clearly in Astley's analysis. Now, theories of retention is quite a straightforward questions which you can enumerate various theories, and just 2-3 points to substantiate the same can fetch you enough of 4.5 to 5 marks if explained very well. Now, the next set of questions, for instance, is define habits, enumerate various deleterious oral habits, describe the causes and management of tongue thrusting. So here you have a lot of questions which individually split into parts like habits, defining habits can give you 1 marks, enumerating various deleterious habits can give another 1 marks to you, and then the remaining 3 mark is equally distributed as 1.5 and 1.5 in explaining how what are in how or what are the causes that is leading to tongue thrusting and how it can be well managed is where your marks comes in. So that is equally how a 5 mark is distributed initially, and it's split fairly among all the 5 questions. Now moving on to the next question is define anchorage and enumerate various kinds of anchorage, and then the question describing reciprocal anchorage with examples. So similar to the first question, defining anchorage can give you 1 mark, with enumerating various kinds of anchorage can also fetch you 1.5 marks. Then describing the reciprocal anchorage with examples is where you fetch your remaining 2.5 marks. So if the question is structured, all parts of the question has to be given equal weightage and has to be attempted equally, and that's how you distribute your effort equally for all the questions. But whereas a simple question would be more complex to answer, but on the same time you can have straightforward answers to it. Now coming on to the last part of the questions, we have classify springs, describe the apron spring. So here the question, if it's for 2 marks, it's equally 1 marks which is given up for the classification, and then describing how the apron spring works, and a proper diagram for the apron spring can totally fetch you the 2 marks in hand. Now 6 keys of occlusion. So 2 marks questions are more the way direct and simple to answer, but it has to be very precise and point to point. You need not waste much of your time concentrating on these kinds of questions, unlike your long essays or short essays. So short notes are where a point to point answers which are being more evaluated on. So just evaluating or answering to the question is enough to fetch you what is required. Now, leeway space of Nance would require you addressing on defining how leeway space of Nance is being defined, and also the discrepancies between the tooth structure and the arch length has to be discussed again. Now, the next part, it's views classification on cleft lip and cleft palate. So you need to know the classification of views and why it is being extensively used in cleft lip and cleft palate. So just defining views classification is enough to fetch you marks along with the diagrams. So the short notes can be made even precise and objectified using various diagrams to pinpoint your answer that can catch hold the interest of the examiner and that can fetch you good marks. So this is how normal practice for your university's exams or evaluation is thoroughly done through the same. So all the best, guys. Wish you all the best for your university exams. See you soon with another video. Thank you.